A very good evening and welcome to this Sunday's edition of News First Weekend, coming to you live from our News First studios in Colombo. I'm Arundhati Udanayaka. Let's start off with a look at the stories making headlines this evening. United Nations General Assembly to open in New York tomorrow. 2 people gunned down in the south. Talawakale estate workers protest seeking hike in daily wages. Maldivians go to polls to elect new president. Results after midnight. Anthony Joshua retains world heavyweight titles. And now the stories in detail. 2 men were gunned down at 2 separate locations in the south of the country today.
The first shooting took place this morning in an area known as Wadigala along the Tangol-Katharagama main road. Police said 2 unidentified gunmen in a motorbike had opened fire at an individual using a repeater gun. The injured 43-year-old man was rushed to hospital but died upon admission. Police said the victim was the owner of a local vehicle service centre. The second shooting took place at around 2:50 this evening on the Hikkadua-Baddegama road. Preliminary investigations revealed the victim was gunned down by 2 unknown gunmen in a motorbike when he was walking on the street. The 37-year-old father of 3 from Telwatta was rushed to the Balapitiya hospital where he was pronounced dead. The police special task force today said information has come to light linking these shootings to the underworld. Police said the shootings were carried out by a group working for an organized criminal known as Fodilasi. A senior-ranked police officer said there had been a dispute between 2 factions over a period of time and the shootings were the result of that dispute.
A protest was held in the Talawakale town today by tea estate workers demanding that their basic daily wage be increased to 1,000 rupees.
Several trade unions were involved in this protest, which was organized by the Tamil Progressive Alliance. Political representatives together with estate workers who gathered outside the Lindula Municipal Council on the Hatton-Norelia main road marched to the Talawakale Municipal Council grounds. All shops in the Talawakale town were closed in support of this protest. Estate workers from Nuarelia, Badulla and several other areas participated in this demonstration.
Now the tea price is good. If the companies are going to cheat the people, we will chase them and divide the tea estates among the workers. They should provide a reasonable wage this time. Talk to the companies and provide a decent wage. Neither me nor the minister can sign on this because there is a legal problem.
The government should intervene to solve this problem. It is not possible for one party to make agreements to decide the wage for these people. When the railway trade union protests, the president talks to them in person. We are saying that the president, ministers and the government should also be involved in solving the issues with regard to the daily wage of the estate workers.
President Maithripala Sirisena left for New York last night to attend the 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly, which begins tomorrow at the United Nations headquarters in New York. This year's theme of the UNGA session is making the United Nations relevant to all people, global leadership and shared responsibilities for peaceful, equitable and sustainable societies. Newsfirst Chaturanga Hapwarachi reports from New York.
His Excellency President Maithripala Sirisena arrived in New York this morning to attend the 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly, where he will produce 2 resolutions regarding Sri Lanka before the United Nations. All preparations are set and made for the 73rd session of the UN General Assembly here at the UN headquarters in New York, which you see behind me.
President Maithripala Sirisena will attend the Nelson Mandela Peace Summit tomorrow, considered to be the most important global peace event organized on the sidelines of the 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly. In the evening, the President will attend the dinner hosted by the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump and the First Lady. On the 25th, the President will address the United Nations General Assembly after being welcomed by the UN General Secretary Antonio Guterres. The resolutions he will submit to the UN will be aimed at solving issues and providing relief without causing harm to the pride of the security forces and safeguard independence, sovereignty and national security. The President, in his 15-minute speech before the world leaders, will outline the achievements so far and the plans for future action. The inauguration ceremony of the 73rd UN General Assembly will be held at 9 a.m. US time on the 25th.
We will keep you updated throughout the day as to the happenings at the United Nations. I am Chaturang Hapwarachi reporting from New York for News First.
The 2018 Maldivian presidential election, which has been steeped in controversy, took place today. The polls is being closely observed by people around the world.
262,135 eligible voters went to polls today to decide on a new president or re-elect the incumbent president. The two men vying for the post are incumbent President Abdullah Yameen and joint opposition's Ibrahim Mohamed Soli. Ballot boxes were spread across the nation, which consists of over 1,000 islands, 472 in the Maldives, 2 in Sri Lanka, 1 each in India, Malaysia and the UK. The Indian Ocean island is best known overseas for its clear waters and high-end resorts, but its government stands accused of crushing dissent. President Abdullah Yameen has embraced China, while his opponent Ibrahim Mohamed Soli is seen as leaning towards India and the West. More than 2,000 local monitors are expected to observe the election, while the European Union said it did not send observers because the country failed to meet basic conditions for monitoring. The government has denied entry to a large number of foreign election monitors and journalists to cover the election. Voters were seen struggling to get into the High Commission here in Colombo to cast their vote. Similar reports have emerged from the polling centers set up in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Polling opened at 8 a.m. in the Maldives, and voters in the capital Malé, as well as in Sri Lanka and Malaysia, reported waiting periods of over 2 to 3 hours to cast their ballots. There were also allegations that the voting ink that is being used for the election disappears quickly from voters' fingers after casting their ballot. The island nation has been gripped by political upheaval in recent years. In February, the Supreme Court quashed the convictions of 9 opposition figures, among them exiled ex-President Mohammad Nasheed, who was ousted from office in 2012.
At a time when growing Chinese influence in the region has raised serious concerns, the recently elected Prime Minister of Malaysia, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, had made it clear why he does not prefer the Chinese investment method.
We welcome foreign direct investment from anywhere, certainly from China. But when it involves giving contracts to China, borrowing huge sums of money from China, and the contract goes to China, and China contractors prefer to use their own workers from China, use everything imported from China, and even the payment is not made here, it's made in China. So we gain nothing at all. That kind of contract is not something that I welcome. The other thing is that they develop whole cities, very sophisticated cities, very expensive cities, which Malaysians cannot buy. So they are going to bring foreigners to live in those cities.
The statement made by the Malaysian Prime Minister must be taken very seriously, especially by those who bring in Chinese investment to Sri Lanka. The reason being, Sri Lanka cannot allow substandard products flooding its economy. China's Belt and Road Initiative has been the subject of concern, as a number of countries which received investment under the program have begun to grumble about falling prey to a Chinese debt trap. Chinese projects in Sri Lanka have drawn similar concerns. Last year, the strategic Hambantota port was given to the Chinese on a 99-year lease over the country's inability to repay the loans obtained for the $1.4 billion project. Speaking to Newsfirst recently, former advisor to the Finance Minister Malik Kader stressed on Sri Lankan concerns.
For instance, one good example is to take the Hambantota port. Recently, there was a conversion from debt to equity, right? A 1.5 billion conversion. And if Sri Lanka's total debt was in the range of 50 billion, if the 10% they're talking about is 4 billion, at the 1.5 billion, you're looking at about close to about 6 billion. So that's about a 15%. So there are much more than this which is there. So this 10% which has been mentioned by China is, I think, inaccurate.
What sort of investments should a country attract? Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, in his interview in June, made it clear.
And we welcome investment, foreign investment from any country, so long as they bring in the capital, they bring in the technology, they set up plants here, and they employ Malaysians from workers to engineers, and they produce goods for the domestic market and for export. That we welcome, coming from anywhere.
It must be noted that it is totally unacceptable that measures have been taken to strike a blow on local employment by cutting out the cess tax and putting the local economy at risk.
Well, up next is our investigative news segment, Action TV.
As part of the plan to hold a National Dairy Farmer Convention under the auspices of the President, where 20,000 dairy farmers from across the island will be in attendance, the Uva Province Dairy Farmer Convention took place yesterday under the patronage of the Subject Minister in Munaragala. This is because the Minister himself has become a dairy farmer after securing 50 pregnant dairy heifers brought to Sri Lanka from Australia. These heifers are given to dairy farmers by the government at a concessionary rate. The Minister may have a keen interest in conducting a dairy farmer convention because of this. Such a convention is in fact the need of the hour, because it would bring about solutions to the issues faced by dairy farmers for many years, and mainly because there is a risk of the local dairy industry moving to the brink of destruction. On the 1st of September, the Ceylon Cattle Farmers Association met with the Subject Minister in Haputale to brief him about this serious situation. The media was not permitted to cover the event. However, we are now in possession of the report handed over to the Minister by the Ceylon Cattle Farmers Association. This report is in relation to the pregnant heifers imported from Australia and distributed among the local dairy farmers. The report questions why a sum of 500,000 rupees was spent on importing one heifer at a time when one heifer could have been brought down to the country at a cost of 121,000 rupees. The report goes on to state 95% of the heifers imported to Sri Lanka are not suitable for commercial dairy and should have been disqualified during selection. The report also contains reasons for this as well. According to the report, 25% of the heifers already imported to Sri Lanka are not in good health, and farmers were forced to spend a lot of money to provide medication to the heifers. The report also adds 40% of the calves born to these heifers had died following various illnesses. The Ceylon Cattle Farmers Association says, as they do not believe these calves are from good pedigree, and also due to the presence of different diseases, they cannot hope for a good second generation. The Ceylon Cattle Farmers Association has also presented figures to show how the local agent that acted to bring these heifers to the country had misled them. The association requests for the appointment of a commission to probe this serious matter and put an immediate stop to the importation of another batch of 15,000 heifers. Newsfirst is in possession of a series of tapes that prove these matters were in fact put forward to the Subject Minister at the meeting convened on the 1st of this month. However, speaking to the media following the convention in Kurunegala yesterday, the Minister made the following remarks. Yes, payments were made during the time of Arumugam, Basil and Harrison. I did not make payments and I did not tell them to bring heifers. But heifers must be brought to Sri Lanka. The Auditor General, the Department of Animal Production and Health, as well as the Ceylon Cattle Farmers Association have laid out the real situation on this matter. Yet, what right and power does a minister have to represent imported heifers that are not suitable for Sri Lanka?
The Sunday Times has reported there will be changes in several key positions in the country's judicial and foreign service.
It is reported that President Maithripala Sirisena, who left for New York yesterday to attend the United Nations General Assembly session, is to make some top-level appointments upon his return to Colombo. According to the Sunday Times, Attorney General Jayanta Jayasuriya has already been recommended to be the next Chief Justice. He will take over when the current incumbent Priyasath Dep retires next month. The report goes on to suggest that to be appointed as Attorney General is Daphula Dilivera. At present, he is the Additional Solicitor General and he assisted the Presidential Commission of Inquiry that probed the central bank bond scam. It must be pointed out that when the Prime Minister was summoned to give evidence before the Commission, it was Attorney General Jayanta Jayasuriya who questioned the Prime Minister and not Daphula Dilivera. According to the Constitution, it is the President who is vested with the power to make these appointments. The president should not regret it after he appoints people to key positions. As the president holds responsibility in making these appointments, he cannot say that he was not aware about those who he appoints to these positions. Therefore, it is paramount that he reaches the correct decision before making the appointments. If not, he will only be left with regret. Ravinath Aryasinghe, a career diplomat, is tipped to be the new secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Aryasinghe will succeed Prasad Karyavasam, who was Sri Lanka's ambassador to Washington, D.C., before moving over to Colombo as foreign secretary. Before the government was elected, they made a pledge to the people promising all necessary measures will be taken to uplift the quality of the country's foreign service. However, the country's foreign policy came under scrutiny in recent times following allegations made regarding the changes made to foreign services, agreements reached with other countries, and associated actions during the past 3.5 years. During the said period, 3 foreign ministers and 3 deputy foreign ministers were appointed. Notably, all of them represented the United National Party. In the recent times, 3 appointments were made to the post of Foreign Secretary, which is one of the key public administration positions in the country. The latest will become the 4th appointment to that post. Recently, the president recalled the Sri Lankan diplomats attached to the embassy in Austria as well.
Going by the Sunday Times report, I'm really glad that the president has decided to appoint Ravinath Aryasinghe as the next foreign secretary. Ravinath is an excellent diplomat. He has done this country proud. He has served this country well. And I think now if you look at the situation, this is the 4th foreign secretary. Now first we had, where there was Shanuka Seneviratne, who was the foreign secretary when this government came into power. Then there was Chitrangani Wageshwara, who was given an extension. Then there was Asala Veerakone. Then there was Prasad Karyavasam. Now they are going to appoint Ravinath Aryasinghe. I think it's a very good move by the president, because if you look at the state, for the last 3.5 years we have had 3 foreign ministers, 3 deputy foreign ministers, and now the foreign secretary. So I think it's very important for any ministry or any organization to have a proper leadership. It looks like, I mean, it's a coalition government, but if you look at the foreign ministry, all of them have been from the United National Party. And I'm glad that the president, even at this stage, I mean, I wouldn't say intervening, that he got involved, because this is the face of the country. Having somebody like Ravinath Aryasinghe as the next foreign secretary will definitely do well for the foreign ministry.
The pinnacle of the Chaitya at the Pilikada Majuana Sri Pushpa Rama temple in Galle was unveiled by former President Mahinda Rajapaksa yesterday. Now, speaking at the event, the former president made the following remarks.
The list to provide drought relief is prepared based on political affiliations. They assume only they understand what it means to be in hunger. Factories are shutting down because of the tax policy. Local industries are falling apart. The leather industry will have to be shut down. That will lead to serious unemployment in thousands. Those who promise to create hundreds of thousands of jobs are slashing jobs. The people are suffering because they have no policy or plan or program. They claim this critical situation was created because of the debt I borrowed. I paid off the first installment in the loan for the harbour from the revenue of the Ports Authority. We built a port because we were capable of doing it. They too have taken loans, but we are yet to see what they were used for. They have not been able to even build a culvert.
Leader of the JVP, Anru Kumar Dissanayake, commented on the media briefing convened by the former president yesterday.
The depreciation of the rupee against the US dollar is one of the key topics discussed regarding the economy. The finance minister says the economy has not fallen despite the depreciation of the rupee. That is what the finance minister says on the matter. One of the factors in the economy is the depreciation of the rupee. We warn the finance minister not to speak of economics he knows nothing about. We request him to engage in a trade that he is familiar with. How can a finance minister say there is no connection between the falling economy and the depreciating rupee? Yesterday, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa convened his first briefing, letting go of the usual voice cut given at temples. A journalist raised a valid question. He was asked about his opinion on the present status of the rupee. Next to him was Veeravansa. No point asking him. The other side was also the same. Cabral, who was seated behind him, whispered something to his ear. Mahinda repeats whatever is whispered to his ear. Are they leaders? The journalist then questions what plans does he have to address the depreciation. He responds he will address it when elected. He speaks as if he has Aladdin's magic lamp with him. Then he spoke about the North. Then a journalist questions about Keith Noya. He says there is no connection between the economy and Keith Noya, but the Northern elections is connected to the economy according to him. These are people who only respond to matters that benefit them and refuse to answer on matters that don't benefit them. We were able to understand his understanding on the economy when he came before the media for the first time.
Former General Secretary of the United National Party, Tisatha Naika, speaking at an event in Jaila, commented on his former party.
The path undertaken by the UNP is not people-friendly. The people were hoping for a change in the party, but the present situation is disappointing. In the past, the leaders protected the people who voted for them. I have no idea on their present journey. I do not think so. The people are talking about a new leadership and a new program for 2020. If that does not happen, the people will seek alternatives. The party leadership must be held responsible for that. The UNP can decide on that matter. There is no need to import people from elsewhere and portray them as leaders. There were many opportunities to select a person internally. They did not make use of those opportunities. The people have said the decision of 2010 and 2015 are not valid. The party has the opportunity and the party must take that opportunity. The leader should be one who loves the people, one who respects the people, and one who can signal to the people he will work with a backbone. This country created great leaders who brought about great development. I believe if they can select a leader of that caliber, the UNP can move ahead. There are many views in the UNP today. Some are not evident because they are in power. Some are in pain. Ranil Wickremesinghe should be held responsible for that. As party leader, if he will not open the party, there will be internal conflicts.
JVP MP Sunil Handuneti, speaking at a public meeting in Galewala Matale, commented on the present financial situation.
People now get on board a bus with a calculator in hand. They even go to a store with a calculator. Bus fares increased by 4%. The price of a gas cylinder increased by 195 rupees. Fuel prices increase regularly based on the fuel price formula. There is no talk about that. The country is in debt to foreign nations and people are in debt to banks. So this is the reality. Yesterday, the finance minister said the global situation led to the depreciation of the rupee. Why did they wait for so long for this to happen? They could have forced the rupee to depreciate if this was the case. The economy has fallen and the leaders do not understand because their finances have not been affected. If this country is to be built, we need proper leaders and a proper policy framework. The people voted for thieves and elected corrupt leaders, but the people hope for a better form of governance. How will that happen? Do not get enraged with me for saying this, but if we need a proper form of governance, we need people with the proper mindset. If we need to create governance free of corruption, the people need to be free of corruption. If politics needs to be cleansed, the people too need to be cleansed.
The Maubima newspaper reported today that the mega high-speed rail and mixed development project initiated by foreign investment worth $500 million is being delayed with the ulterior motive of purchasing shares and obtaining commissions. The report notes that the project will provide employment opportunities to 22,000 people and receive an export revenue of €5 billion.
Ceylon High Speed Railway Corporation Private Limited introduced the Mega High Speed Rail and Mixed Development Project to Sri Lanka. The chairman of Ceylon High Speed Railway Corporation Private Limited, Anushka Renu, had written to the president complaining that the project is being delayed because some are expecting commissions. The chairman requested the head of state to intervene and conduct an investigation to prevent destruction from taking place by an individual appointed as the Director General of the Board of Investment. She alleges that the Director General in question was appointed to fulfill personal requirements of a minister and a state minister. The chairman goes on to note that the secretary to the ministry was asked not to intervene by the minister. The letter reads, on the 28th of September 2017, an official of the BOI had informed her in Milan, Italy, that the BOI official in question had asked him to do what the officer instructs and to resubmit the relevant documents in order to get the project approved. The newspaper reports the videos and the photographs related to the incident were sent to the president along with the letter.
A 13-year-old boy died under tragic circumstances when he attempted to capture pigeons.
13-year-old Kalimuttu Sivadaran was a grade 7 student from the Udappur Tamil Mahavidyalaya. Kalimuttu, being the second in the family, had gone to school last evening with 2 other friends to catch pigeons. The young boy had managed to climb onto the roof of a classroom using a ladder and capture a pigeon by moving several roofing tiles out of the way. At that time, his companions were at the foot of the ladder. However, the ceiling had given way in an unexpected manner, bringing down the young boy and the pigeon he had just captured. According to a correspondent, since yesterday was a school holiday, there was no one present to save the young boy's life. Sivadaran's companions had fled the school in fear moments after he fell onto the ground and informed their parents only at 6 in the evening. Sadly, when the parents rushed to the school, little Sivadaran and the pigeon had breathed their last. I was on duty at 6 in the evening and I went to the new building. A group of women came and I went to inquire why they were here. Then they said a child had fallen inside the school, but the doors are always closed and the key is only with the teacher, so we had to break the locks to get in. When we went there, he was on the floor. There was a lot of blood. When we took him to hospital, they informed us that he was dead.
Another phase of the Samata 7 housing project was launched in Murkhirigara Veerakatia. The foundation stone was placed under the auspices of Minister of Housing and Construction and the Deputy Leader of the United National Party, Sajith Premadasa.
The villages which will be built in the Palankada area in Veerakatia will be the 1291st, 1292nd and 1293rd Uda Gammana concept villages. The villages will be named Sausiri Lakpati Dudley Sena Nayaka Gama, Sahasket Gama and Samata Gama. 26 houses are to be built in each village, while land deeds and loans were also given to villagers during the event.
Dudley Sena Nayaka Metituma ගැන කතා කරනකොට
We come into power to uplift and strengthen the livelihood of people. Though Minister Dudley Sena Nayaka comes from a wealthy family, he always thought about people. Therefore, with great pleasure, I would like to say the first village of the Mulkirigama electorate will be named to remember the late Dudley Sena Nayaka. The next matter is a disappointing one because it is somewhat of a joke. The former president convened a media briefing to comment on the depreciation of the Sri Lankan rupee yesterday. Some of the journalists questioned him in English as to what measures he would have taken with regard to the depreciation of the rupee if he was in power. He was left speechless. He stammered and said, "Wait and see what will happen when they come to power." That was a remarkable answer. I publicly challenge and invite the former president to come for a national level debate to speak about the future economic plans, rupee depreciation and also on the matter of housing. Either in Sinhala or in English, I don't mind the language. If the person who is trying to be the next leader has no plan on controlling the depreciation of the rupee, I responsibly state he is not suitable to once again take over governance of this country.
ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂාවෙන් ඕන නම් ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂාවෙන්
Moving on to sports news now, Anthony Joshua has successfully defended his IBF, WBA and WBO heavyweight titles by beating Alexander Povetkin at Wembley Stadium. And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of Weekend Primetime News. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.